to recover. And we can't waste time. We've got lots of help here, people that want to help us right now. And so there are a lot of people that are in a position to just go. And we're going to discuss that so you can figure out what category you're in. Okay? And so I would like to start, if I could get Judge Rob Kelly to come up. He's going to let us know kind of what the rules are for tonight. And this is an important part, so let's just hear this part.
Okay. This town hall is the product of an engineering collaborative. It did not come from the court. It came from the technical people. And they want to explain what we faced here. This is not a press conference. We're not here to take questions. They have their own presentation they're going to do. We're here to support and be here for you. So if you would, please respect that. That's all we ask. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge. If I could have Commissioner Tom Jones, Precinct 1, lead us in invocation.
If y'all would remove your caps, please. Heavenly Father, this is probably the easiest thing that we can do right now. Let's come together and honor you and ask for you to come into this house right now. Fill us with your presence, Father. A lot of people here suffering great loss. A lot of people are just suffering loss. May not have been affected as heavily as others. But either way, Father, these are our neighbors, they're our friends, they're part of our faith community. And Father, we just want to hold them in our arms, love on them, and then help guide them through a process to help them recover, to help them move forward. So Father, be with us today. Guide and direct us. Give us the wisdom that we need. Give us the inherent vision that we're going to need going forward. Put the right people in place at the right times. Help us not to make mistakes that can be costly to folks as we move forward. So Father, just bring all this together in a way that only you can do. We ask for your loving arms to just be wrapped around us. Father, honor our prayers. It's in your Son's name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I've been asked to read a brief statement. And I think part of it is a correctional statement. And it says, in an effort to bring the necessary resources, including information, to our community that can help us rebuild after the detrimental floods, we have invited the Texas Water Development Board, the TWDB, Flood Science and Community Assistance, the FSCA team, to speak about compliance with the National Flood Insurance Program, the NFPIP. You're going to find out they've got a book of acronyms about that thick, and so we're not downloading all those. So I'm trying to explain them so when you hear them, you'll know a little bit about those. The meeting notice incorrectly identified guests as FEMA employees. However, the team that is here today is from the TWDB and not FEMA. They're here to talk about the importance of substantial damage assessments and estimations, something crucial to Kerr County compliance with an NFIP. In addition, they may share information about resources available to the cities and counties affected by these disasters, not assistance directly provided to individuals. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. If I could get Commissioner of Precinct 4, Don Harris, to come forward. He's going to help us to understand the debris.
Okay, good. The debris removal is huge for us. And we started meeting, I think Tom Jones and I started meeting with Tatum about day 2 of this event. And it's taken a lot of twists and turns. We're getting pretty close to getting it off the roadways. TxDOT's already started on some corridors, state highways. But Tatum has given me a question and answer type deal that you need to hear. That it's pretty standard for all the different disasters. And start out with, when's debris removal start? Well, some of it has started on Highway 39, and some more will start at the end of the week. We have been meeting, and they had contractors that had a deadline of noon yesterday that they were going to get. We don't know how many Well, I'll find that out tomorrow's meeting, but they're gonna have contractors come in and, start picking up on our county roads in different areas, and then, we're gonna do that, and hopefully in sections. We know that school's gonna be starting down the road, so that's gonna be in play, and some of the determination, where we start and try to get ahead of it. You know, like 39 here, it's narrow, and we don't want the school buses having to contend with a lot of big, heavy trucks and stuff like that. So that's a consideration there. Also, what can be picked up? Most of y'all have probably seen these sheets on the internet and what have you. There's a pile of them back there on the table, and you can get some of those before you leave. And it tells you how to separate it, you know, electronics, your television, computers, stereo, stuff like that, separated out in different piles. Large appliances, refrigerators, washers, dryers, air conditioners, dishwashers, hazardous waste, oil, batteries, pesticides, paint, vegetative debris, which is huge. Tree limbs, branches, logs, plants, and then construction debris, your building materials, drywall, lumber, carpet, furniture. And if you can separate them out, it'll help a lot. I've seen a few piles that were piled up before, and it's not easy to go back in and separate it. They will pick it up, but they ask to help as much as you can and to go quicker. Now, if you're putting it out in front of your house, and they may come get the vegetative one day, and then come get the white appliances down the road. They may not get it all at once, but they're gonna come through. It's gonna be pretty systematic. I'll get to the burning at the end. Gated? Oh, okay. I'm not used to going by that, but also they said we're way ahead of schedule. They said some disasters, they don't even start talking about debris removal for first 3 weeks. And they say we're way ahead, and all I know is go by what they say, that the people that work these disasters all over the state and nation as far as that goes. So we're way ahead. More debris than what was at Hurricane Harvey by a lot. So we got a big chore. The sites, we have 2 different sites picked out, that Tatum picked out, and they didn't want any private properties for these, where these incinerators would be placed. One of them's gonna be by the old soccer fields, by the landfill. The city owns that property. The other one's gonna be at Centerpoint ISD property across from their football field. I think they have about 125 acres, and that's gonna be where another incinerator is. And that's where debris will be taken that they pick up. Now, as individuals, they're not gonna allow you to take it. It has to come by way of the contractors, okay? Okay, the burning, that's a good question. And we just had about our 3rd meeting on that. The debris removal along the major corridors is gonna take place first. And we haven't refined exactly how we're gonna open it up to burning, but I do know that we're gonna try to open it up in segments. Let's say we get all the debris removal west of Hunt, let's say. Then we might open that up for burning, okay? And then they'll work, as they work this way, we'll open up more. We don't want to just, and this is after all the cadaver dogs had done their work and sent home, okay? So not sure when that's gonna take place, but that will happen first. And I will tell you, we're talking about turning the burn ban back strictly over to the judge, and he handles it, and it's gonna be, we're gonna keep the burn ban on the flood plain, where the floods was, the river corridor. I see some friends here from Mountain Home. I've got a lot of calls, and they've been very patient. They call me and say, why can't we burn? And they've respected what the the sheriff has said and the Tatum has said about we didn't want smoke during the recovery process. But we're looking at opening that up. And I don't know when, so bear with us. Y'all been very patient and y'all missed some great opportunities to burn. I understand that, but we're gonna get to you, okay? And we're still in that trying to refine that model of how we're gonna do this. So anyway, won't open it up till the debris has taken place, then we will. That way our volunteer fire departments aren't stretched thin across the whole county, okay? And we'll get some extra state help. Texas A&M Forest Service will come in and be on standby as well and help us with that when we start opening it up. So it'll be systematic, so bear with us. All right, what do you got? Is that it? Burning? The latest information on all of this stuff, we're gonna be putting it out on our Facebook page, the Kerr County Facebook page, the county website, and of course, I share it on my commissioner page, so look at it there. Those of y'all that don't want or have a hard time getting it or can't get it to the roadways, if you want it picked up off your property, you'll need to fill out a right of entry for the contractors that come in on your private property. And they'll have forms for you to do that if anybody's in that boat. Something else I want to talk about, if there's if there's a vehicle on your property that's not yours and you want it removed, if you remove it on your own, then it's at your expense. If you want the contractors come in and get it, they will, but again, you'll need that right of entry form filled out. One thing we ask, the household trash, everyday trash that we have in our houses, that doesn't go in these piles. Use your regular vendors for that. And that's about it. All right, Charlie.
I will continue to MC. Gotta raise this up.
Yeah, how about that? Well, I tell you.
Just a few quick statements. As I visit with our state, Texas State Rangers, I've been working very closely with. We've been able to provide them with engineering data that help them to locate. And so if you've been trying to send me emails or trying to get in contact with me, I've absolutely ignored you. Finding everybody is priority one. We've got 3 left. That's all I gotta say about that. I also want to overemphasize the way ahead of schedule on debris. And I want you to know who's paying for it. It's your governor. He's doing that for us. And you may not realize that. But I heard the word billions when they described it. The professionals that said, guys, this is bigger than Hurricane Harvey in Rockport. Billions. That would bankrupt us. We would have to fold up shop. We'd have to leave the debris and look at it for the next 50 years. It's being removed quickly. Okay? And the burning is going to start in 60 days from when the event started. So around Labor Day, we can start burning. And the way it's going to be burned on those sites is a pit will be dug. And the material that's to be burned will be put in a tub grinder, and they will put it in the pit, and in the morning, when they start it, and they get that incinerator fan blowing, there'll be a little bit of smoke. But once it gets up to temperature, it'll burn hot and clean all day long, and it'll be shut down every evening. That's the regulation. They're gonna burn on those 2 sites anywhere from 300 to 400 tons a day. So that's 600 to 800 tons a day for 3 to 4 months. Could be 12 months depending on what our weather does. So keep that in mind and thank the governor. Okay? The other thing that we need to thank the state of Texas for is on day 1, 1,000 people showed up. I didn't know. We were running around just trying to figure out what happened to us. and then trying to stay out of the way. We went back in Bumblebee, there were still rescues going on. So we're part of the problem, and we're in county trucks. We know better. So we got out of there, go back to the shop, let's go start at the other end, let's start assessing damage. My job as county engineer is debris management. And then it's also assessing all of the public infrastructure. So we've got a dozen bridges and low water crossings that have various levels of gravel on them that's already been removed. Most of it was par for the course for us because most of the debris just went right over the top. It was way up high, okay? We've got some damage to Cape Loop Bridge. It is safe to drive across, but there's guardrails missing, there's some holes on the side, so we've got it to just one lane because that's the only way in and out right now. But I wanted you to just be aware of that, and this is the greatest thing that I get to say. I met the president, and I shook his hand, and I told him, I said, thank you for coming to our home, because he came, he showed up. And I said, you got it wrong. It was bigger than a 1,000-year event. Okay? Because I believe that with all my heart. I looked at the data. So guys, this was a monster tsunami that ripped through our community. It's an inland tsunami. I also got to present to Christy Noam, and I didn't know who she was. But that's another story. Don't tell the rest of that. So, you're here because you've got damage of some sort. All right? And I'm sorry that I didn't have time to make the bullet dots come up one at a time, so please just bear with me. This is how you can report damage. You can report damage using ISTAT. The I stands for individual, and the STAT stands for State of Texas Assessment Tool. Okay? And if you go to damage.tdm.texas.gov, it'll get you started. If somebody hasn't already come and done that for you, which TDM, the Texas Department of Emergency Management, had 300 people pounding the ground immediately, and within a few days, they had all these sites done. Now, the purpose of the initial assessment is that if you have at least 5 for your community, then your community now qualifies for federal assistance, and of course, we've got hundreds, if not thousands. Okay, so they've done that, but so once they reached the threshold, they said, we way surpassed the threshold of 5, so I encourage you to still start that process. If you haven't, go through it, submit it, because when you go next to FEMA, reporting damage to FEDA in person, I suggest that's where you go. And right now, the Disaster Recovery Center, the DRC, is located at Kerrville First Baptist Church in Kerrville. But it is, I found out today from FEMA, it's going to change, and they'll do a press release to B.T. Wilson Elementary. That's also in Kerrville. So keep that in mind. All right? If you have reported damage to FEMA, okay, let's say the ISAT, it doesn't matter if the ISAT was done or not. But I encourage you to do it because it will help grease the skids with FEMA. But you're not done. That's my point. You need to go and visit with FEMA. There's phone numbers on there. You can do that. There's a website. You can do that. We've got very, very intelligent people with degrees in law and judges that have turned things in, and they already got a declined letter. And if you're from the hill country, if the top says declined, we ain't reading the rest of it. We're pretty mad, and we roll our sleeves up and go fix it ourselves. Fine. Federal government's not going to help me. I'll fix it myself. My neighbor will help me. And then we'll be mad. Well, don't be mad. I found out from FEMA, I said, hey, what's going on here? This form is ridiculous. It says declined at the top. Nobody's reading the rest. And they said, oh, keep reading. Go to the 3rd paragraph. There's some secret language in there. Okay? So, keep reading. Most likely, if you read it all, it will say, we need more information. And I said, do you think you could change the title at the top to say, declined, parentheses, we need more information? Do I need to call Trump? So, or Christie. So, she might know me too. And they said, we're working on that, Mr. Hastings. We'll see. All right. So, don't be discouraged and go back. Go right back to them and go, what am I missing here? What do you need? What more do you need? And some people, they'll say, do you have insurance? They're like, yeah, I got house insurance. Well, the real question is, do you have flood insurance? Well, a lot of us, if you're not in the floodplain or anywhere near it, you don't have flood insurance. You didn't need it, right? But storms bigger than the 1% chance, we call it the 100-year, which is misleading, because it can happen 2 times in a row. It's just a 1% chance on any given day, or any given rain event that it will hit that level. Whereas a 1,000-year is a, what is it, a 0.1 or 0.01? Help me out. I've got an engineer over here. He's my guy in the chair that did the hydraulic model. Michael Pantel, can you stand up real quick? This guy he's our savior, really. The Lord sent him. You can watch it on YouTube from yesterday's thing. So I know I spoke 10 minutes at the beginning. I also spoke for 5 minutes at the end. Watch that too, because it's remarkable how he came to us. It was by the hand of God. So carefully read your entire document. You may still be eligible. Don't give up. Typically, more information is needed. Go back to the DRC, which is located at Kerrville First Baptist Church, soon to change to 3T Wilson. Or call 1-800-621-3362. That's 1-800-621-3362. Call now. Or visit www.disasterassistance.gov. That's an easy one to remember. This is being recorded, by the way, so you can go back and watch. All right, the rest of this presentation is not for structures outside the existing regulatory floodplain. Zone AE, what does AE mean? It means it's been studied. The E means elevations. So elevations have been determined. We know what the 100-year elevation is here. Or even an A, unstudied. If you're not in that, and you came here today and you're going, do I really have to go and get a permit from you? No, you don't. You can get up and walk out of here now and go fix your house. But please don't, because your neighbor might be in one of the next categories. Okay? Another category is structures inside the existing floodplain. You got this horizontal, but you followed the rules and you elevated. Or maybe you have this little knoll, because the floodplain maps just didn't pick it up 50 years ago. Not 50, well, yeah, 50. Late 70s, early 80s were the first floodplain maps. Okay, so let's say that's your situation. But you're above the current 100-year floodplain, the current one. Now, let's talk about someone who did get a permit in the 80s, and they built it to that regulation, and then 10 years later, those sorry dogs, they restudied it. Now I'm under. Great, thanks a lot. Well, your grandfather would stay there until you get substantial damage. And whenever you get substantial damage, and we'll talk about that in a second, that's when you have to come to the new standard, okay? We'll get to that in just a minute. So again, structures inside the existing regulatory floodplain zone AE, studied or unstudied, and your finished floor elevation is at least 1 foot above the 1% 100-year base flood elevation, the BFE. What you must do for us before you just think, oh, I'm good. Time out, tap the brakes, provide proof to that didn't read right. We lost some words. Provide proof to the Kerr County Engineering/Floodplain Department by giving us an elevation certificate. A lot of people know what that is. If you don't, you can hire a surveyor or an engineer, and they can go out and they can certify that the elevation finished floor of the lowest floor in your structure, including basements, is above, 1 foot above the base flood elevation. If that's your situation, and you got damaged, but you followed the rules, you're there, you're technically not in the floodplain. Okay? And so therefore, if you provide that proof that you meet that requirement, then give that to us, and we're going to fast track your permit, okay? Because we need a record, all right? And they're free. The permits are free. Now, hiring a surveyor and engineer, maybe they're a buddy of yours, but that's not going to be free. They might be able to help you with a determination, though, just like, hey, am I even in the floodplain? Because there's going to be some people that I'm just not sure, Charlie. I don't know. Let's see. If you're in zone A, that means no elevation has ever been determined. And so if you will come to our office, we will assist you in determining the base flood elevation. We'll give you a number, this is the elevation, then you could go to a surveyor and have him check and see, do I meet the criteria? Am I a foot above? And if you are, then we'll fast track your permit, so we have a record, and that's what you needed to hear. Okay, so if you're in one of those two categories, if you'd like, you can stand up and leave, but I don't want you to leave, because you probably have a neighbor that's in the next category. The next category, and the rest of this presentation is all about this individual. I don't know how many structures it is, but I'm relieved because when we first did the inundation map, we saw that there are thousands of people that got touched by the water. They either got wet, they got damaged, or they got destroyed. One of the three categories. I'll give you a rough number, 2,000, okay? 2,000, was that 2,000 parcels? Where's Bobby? I can't remember the number. Where'd my Bobby go? Bobby, where are you? 2,000 structures on how many parcels? 1,800-ish? 700 parcels. Okay, so 700 parcels, and you know, it could have been a house, it could have been an outhouse, a barn, any structure. So that's a rough estimate that we did with some of the technology we have. And then people that are in the regulatory floodplain, Bobby, how many parcels? About the same amount. And how many structures? 1,200. Okay, so that narrowed it down. That's people that got inundated, okay, somehow. But I'm feeling like this is going to be something less than 700 permits that need to come through my office. I'm kind of hoping it's only like maybe 300, okay? Because you can get one permit for several structures, right? So I'm hoping that it's really only, 300 or 400 parcels, and maybe I only have to do 300 or 400 permits. I was scared to death it was 2,000. I was begging for help the other day. Starting to calm down. We're still going to need help, because that's a lot. I think Bobby and I on a normal year process 50 permits a year. So it's not a lot. So that's the next one. So you're inside the existing regulatory floodplain, either the Zone A studied or the A unstudied, and your finished floor elevation is not at least 1 foot above the current 1% base flood elevation. Not the one from 10 years ago, not the one from 20 years ago or 30, the most current. Okay, so the rest of the presentation is for you on that. So I want to introduce who are the players. First, there's FEMA. What is FEMA? What is their role here? Well, right now, that's who you go to if you want to submit a claim, right? And we're way above the threshold, way above 5. National disaster declared by the president, also declared by the judge, and we're way above 5 homes, hundreds. So their job is to, A, establish a national standard, okay, for the NFIP. Wow, how did I draw a blank on that? I know what that stands for. I've said it a million times. What is it?
National Flood Insurance Program.
National Flood Insurance Program. I knew that N was from national. So there's a disaster recovery center at First Baptist Church, Kerrville, and it's changing sometime in the near future to B.T. Wilson Elementary in Kerrville. And they said they'd do a press release the day before. So they establish a national standard. That's their job. And we all know that one size doesn't really fit all, as we saw. So then you have the Texas Water Development Board, and we have some of those kind people here today. These are some experts. Some of them have worked for the Harris County Flood District, and they've been through this themselves. And all they want to do when they work for the Texas Water Development Board is to help us pass on that knowledge. Okay, so they will serve as a liaison between FEMA and the local authority. Now, the local authority, that's me and Bobby. Okay? We don't bite. Y'all been to our offices. You know what we're like, but we're only 2 people. But we are the grassroots local authority. Okay? FEMA's not coming to tell you how to do your home. They're not. Our court adopted a flood damage prevention court order that is A, about health, safety, and welfare. It's about saving lives. And B, it's to reduce the amount of damage that our community suffers so that when we have something like this, we still have a tax base. Our tax base just got blown up, right? So let's rebuild smart, okay? And if you don't hit any of these categories because you're like, you know what, I just don't want to take another chance. I'm gonna go as high as I can. Some people can. The property, that's the only place they can build, and it's legal because they've got a spot that's out of the 100-year floodplain. It's just like folks on the coast, and they get hurricane, and they rebuild. It's just that what we witnessed and experienced was nothing like a hurricane. It was a tsunami, and that's what hurts. Nobody alive has seen what has happened to us. Nobody. Talk to our farmers and ranchers. They'll tell you stories that their great-great-grandfathers talk about. And we'll try to get that story out. I do charge the media. Find those people, please. I've heard stories of cypress trees on top of mountains in Medina. And they're there. And I know they're there. I haven't seen the pictures yet, but I trust the men that told me with all my life. They're right. And so there are times when we're going to have water hit in the hill country because it's all rock, and it's just a giant funnel. And when you get an intensity that's so intense that the rain gauges can't keep up, the rain gauges are only really calibrated for 2 inches an hour, and you're getting 4 inches an hour for 3 hours straight, and there's peaks of 19.5 inches, that's what we got, guys. Okay? I hope it never happens again. But we'll see. So, we are subject to the national standard, and that's what we're going to continue to follow. All right? Now, the rest of the slides are with the Texas Water Development Board. Please stick around for this. Don't leave. These guys are here genuinely to help. They're very kind people. I've met them at floodplain conferences. I'm a certified floodplain manager. I have been a speaker at the Texas Floodplain Management Association on several occasions. As a matter of fact, there's a presentation I did on the 2002, July 2nd, 2002 flood in Kerrville, which we had over a 1,000-year event, and God, it was only on the Quinlan Creek area. Town Creek was about 100-year. Third Creek was somewhere between 100 and 500, or 500 and 1,000, I'm not sure. We didn't lose a single life because it happened during the day. And people saw where they were going. It wasn't dark. Okay? And I saw a Honda CRV up in a tree, 35 feet up, down by the wash of Terria. And the guy had his washing machines cleaned the same day because he knew people were going to need to do their laundry. And it was gone. I had friends from Dallas. They said, "Did you get up in the helicopter and get a picture of the flood?" I said, "It's gone. It's already gone. It came through. It lasted 10 minutes. And it ripped up everything in its path. Over 200 homes had damage. The path in 2002, July 2nd, was over a mile wide, and the floodplain, 100-year floodplain for Quinlan Creek is really only supposed to be a couple hundred feet. It was massive. So the people that know what I'm talking about were here. That was a lot of water. So, anyway, I will leave it to the Texas Water Development Board to walk us through the rest.
It's coming back down. Good evening. On behalf of the Texas Water Development Board, I would like to thank your local elected officials and your engineering team for inviting us here today. We want to share a heartfelt thank you for your hard work, and that we are only here to help. So we just wanted to come and present some information on what this all means and what we are here to do to help. And so anyway, we'll get started. Like Charlie said, we are here to talk about the National Flood Insurance Program, which we'll offer a little bit of history in a little bit, but the National Flood Insurance Program was created because we were during a lot of flood events in our country, and our legislators at the federal level began to think about what we needed to do, not just for insurance purposes, but also for mitigation and planning and funding and permitting and all of those other purposes that are important and parts of this program. It's created primarily to save lives, to save property, to help preserve those things that are most important to us. It does have a compliance component because there are minimal standards that need to be followed. And if you are participating community, we'll talk a little bit about what participating community means. It's also developed to allow us as liaisons, as partners to the FEMA Training Corps. It's developed so we can come and help your officials, and we do this twice a year during statewide conferences. We also attend national conferences to teach other states on what best practices Texas is utilizing. And your team at the Water Development Board has become a model for many states. You know, people look up to us because Texas is always bigger and we like to do things as best as possible. Today we're also going to discuss a very important topic, which is substantial damage and what it means, why it's important, and give you some examples, give you some, read some parts of the rules so you can better understand what we're talking about and what Charlie and Bobby are trying to implement and positively enforce with you all to protect you, to save lives, save property. So this is a really funny picture, but it's easier to explain it through a three-legged stool. I haven't seen many three-legged stools in my life, but just to give you an idea of what the National Flood Insurance Program entails. It has three major components. It has hazard identification, and that is through modeling and mapping. So whenever you, Charlie or Bobby or any of us talk about your flood insurance rate maps, which are firms, or your flood hazard boundary maps, or now we also have some new mapping data at the state. Whenever we talk about that is because the NFIP was developed to help us understand and identify those hazards in our communities. We also have to point out that in those three legs, one of the major legs is mitigation. Managing the risks that we are all, susceptible to. How do we do that? Well, we manage that through regulatory practices, court orders, rules, regulations, things like that. Not because we want to be more stringent on you guys. We want to, do anything to deny you any development, but we want to make sure that we are partnering with you to make sure that you stay safe, again, safe from flooding. And finally, the third leg, if you will, is the flood insurance part. So the NFIP was also developed and created to create a pot of money and a system to be able to insure, underwrite the risk of insuring properties within the special flood hazard areas of all of our communities within the country. This, like I said, this program has been around for a long time. It was established by Congress back in 1968 because that's when we got to the point where we were seeing many large flood storms and flood events in our country, and we weren't doing much about it as a country. So Congress got together and said, okay, let's start talking about it. Bare bone minimums, let's create some standards for development in the floodplain. Let's identify money to map communities to help them understand where the flood risk areas are at. So that's where it all began. It's been reformed, as you can imagine, because we've learned more information. We've been more educated on the science of flooding. We've been, through experiences of large events, we've learned a lot that have helped us become more resilient and have helped us plan for things a little bit better. The event you all endured is nothing that I don't think anyone could really have planned for. It was such a massive event that, but you could always think about things that you can do. Like Charlie said, you can always implement higher standards, even though, like you mentioned earlier, even though your house is already at the base flood elevation, you can go higher. Why not? I mean, will it cost more? Possibly. But it will give you that additional protection. And because of what you guys saw, you can see that we can't predict a lot of these things. This is a voluntary program. And so before I continue, yes, this program, communities raise their hand and say, counties and cities say, we want to be part of this program. What does it take? couple of steps administratively for you to join the program. And we have over 1,400 counties and cities in the state of Texas, but we only have 1,261 communities that participate. The other 200 plus communities don't participate, primarily because they don't have the time, they don't have the interest, they don't have maps whatsoever, they don't have any way of telling how, where the flood risks are within their communities, again, cities or counties. So they choose not to, and that's fine. But when you're not a participating community, and you don't volunteer your community to join, then those folks that live within your community no longer have access to that federally backed insurance. And that may or may not make a difference. It has made a difference for many, many years. So a lot of people want to have that. And not only that, but it also gives you, it's kind of a quid pro quo. Okay, we'll give you flood insurance, access to your community members, but in turn, you have to adopt ordinances or court orders to help protect those people that we are insuring. So I wanted to back up a little bit with that. So why is participating important? There are a lot of reasons that people have chosen not to participate. But again, if you don't participate as a community, if Kerr County was not a participant in the National Flood Insurance Program in good standing, residents that live in Kerr County would not be allowed to purchase that federally backed insurance. And if you had a federally backed insurance policy and the county were to get kicked out of the program, or the judge would write a letter to me and say, you know what, Richie, I want out. What do I do? We don't want this thing. And trust me, we've had those judges and those mayors call us. It's a choice, I always say, but think about it, because then those folks within your community that already have federally backed insurance are going to lose their policies. A lot of federal grants and loans will be denied. A lot of federal disaster monies will be denied. And with us, our agency, it can affect you if you, for example, let's say your community wanted to build a new wastewater treatment plant, and you're asking us for funding at the state. You may be denied because maybe you're building within a special flood hazard area. That treatment plant is going to be built in the cheapest land in the city, and it's not compliant. Oh wait, you're not even participating in this program, so you may be denied for other funding because you haven't raised your hand and said, I want to protect my people, I want to protect those who live within my community. Also, federally insured regulated lending institutions, banks, will not, they may possibly not fund you. They might not lend you the money to buy a house because it's not eligible for flood insurance. And if you're anywhere near or within a special flood hazard area or a floodplain, then they're going to require it. And you're going to say, well, you know what, my community doesn't participate in the NFIP. Well, then you're not going to get federally backed insurance, so therefore we can't lend you the loan. You can't borrow from us to buy that home. And we see that a lot. We see that a lot, especially with those communities that are on the fence, or communities that joined the program 20 or 30 years ago but never moved forward to do more to adopt those basic standards. So they remain in kind of limbo. So we get calls from a lot of realtors asking us for help, and we say, well, we can't force your county judge or your city mayor or your city council to do anything. So, maybe you all get together and talk about that. So we don't have the authority, regulatory authority of the state to tell you folks what you can and cannot do. As far as development in the floodplain, we don't have that authority to tell your staff at the county what to do. We can guide them. I always tell people, and I know my staff has heard me say this 100 times, but we are only here to give you the answers to the test. And the test will be administered by FEMA if they come in and audit your program, or by Mother Nature. That's it. We're trying to give you the answers. We're not trying to catch you in anything. We're trying to help you. You might want to look at this, or let me look at your permit. Oh, you're missing a couple of very crucial things that I think will help protect you and your residents. Or let me look at your ordinance. Oh man, it's from 1991. A lot of language has changed. A lot of things have been updated. Why don't you consider allowing us to give you a model ordinance update, and then you can take that back to your governing board to see if it's okay. Of course, city attorney, county attorney will always review those first. So there's nothing that's gonna make any of this any more stringent than it is already. It's just language that we're updating. So, but we're there to help. Again, communities voluntarily apply to join this program. Nobody tells them they need to. If they want to, they can get out of the program. We always try to convince them not to, because there's a lot of advantages to stay within the program. The first step that you do as a community to join, you pass a resolution, and the governing board says, yes, we would like to join the program. That's a resolution that's passed through your governing board, and then once you do that, there's an actual application that gets filled out. We help you fill it out. Again, we're here to give you the answers to the test, and then you all send that over to FEMA, and FEMA reviews everything, and then sends you this nice letter saying, congratulations and welcome to the National Flood Insurance Program. Initially, communities who have never been in the program go in on the emergency phase, and that's just, again, the first step to get in and get everything sort of solidified with FEMA, and once maps are identified or mapping data is identified and it's adopted within the language of your court order or your ordinance, then things are good to go and everyone in your community is ready to access that federally backed insurance. So, again, quid pro quo, right? You have to be able to fully enforce whatever court order, floodplain damage prevention court order says about the regulations. So Charlie and Bobby are not trying to come down and be mean about stuff. They're just trying to protect you and your family and your property. But in order for them and your community to stay compliant, we'll come in, we'll make phone calls. I know he's answered our phone several times over the years, and we'll ask questions. How are things going? How are your permits? Send us some samples of permits you've issued. We want to read your ordinance. Oh, we found a couple of errors. I think you might want us to review it. We're just here to help. We're not telling you what to do. We get community members call us all the time, and we tell them we have zero authority to tell them anything. We can make a phone call, and we can remind your floodplain administrator, hey, what's going on over there on highway whatever and cross street whatever. Oh, why? What's up? Well, because somebody called us about a complaint that this is going on, and they're filling up a creek and building a bridge, or do you know anything about that? So sometimes they don't even know about it. So we're all here to help one another. They also have to go and inspect the development that's being proposed. They review plans. They're supposed to go out there and make sure that top of the bottom floor is going to be at the elevation that your elevation certificate says it's going to be, because if it's not, and you already poured the slab, it's going to be expensive, and nobody wants that. They have to keep every record they give you, or they collect from you. They do elevation certificates or flood permits. They have to keep those forever. They're the ones that do substantial damage. I know we're talking to your team about supporting or organizations that can support them with these. Charlie just said you have hundreds of structures that are going to have to be assessed. We unfortunately can't help with that. We're not that big of a team. We don't have that kind of time. But there are teams available that can help your community, and I think we're exploring some of that stuff already. We're talking about it. So again, just trying to help your community. They are also responsible to conduct outreach and educate folks. I used to run a municipal utility district with 18,000 accounts, and I learned real fast that the best way to get the word out is not calling a press release, sending out a press release, or doing these robocalls. Put it on social media, Instagram, Facebook, everyone will know. Because if you don't know, your kids will know, or your grandkids will know, and they'll come and tell you, oh, I just saw this on social media. So it's their role is also includes to make sure that they disseminate that information to everyone in their communities. And as you've seen, they've been there firsthand. Part of their job as well is to respond to flood events, regardless of how severe they are or how minor they are. They're here. They're going to be we have first responders. Great. You guys have seen them come in. We have amazing first responders in the state, but they are the key people. Charlie said to me in a call, all of a sudden I went from having, being 2 of us on a team to being thousands of us on a team, because then he was leading a team of an army of people trying to help him. So just wanted to remind you all of that. So I'd like to talk about one very crucial thing, and that's permitting. It's very important, and Charlie gave a good example of those of you that could have left already, and because you're safe. Why? Because you're not in a special flood hazard area, therefore you're not required to pull a permit for a flood permit. And but if you stay here for that reason, because you are maybe in a special flood hazard area, or maybe your house was grandfathered before the maps came out, but you realize, unfortunately, through the experience of this flood, that you are definitely not at base flood elevation, then permitting is very important. And it's not, I want to make sure that we understand what the permit, even if you're not going to rebuild, everybody thinks, well, I'm not going to rebuild, I'm just going to fix my house, I'm going to go in and so it could be for new construction if you're going to reconstruct, or it could be for substantial improvements or substantial damage, and we'll talk a little bit about that. If you're going to place a new mobile home because yours was damaged or yours is gone and you want to replace it with a new one, you need a permit. If you're going to dredge or mine or move dirt around and create some sort of berm or anything that major movement of earth, for sure, you must come in and talk to your team about that. If you're thinking about altering any of those stream channels, maybe they were altered for you by Mother Nature, and now they're completely different than they were, a month ago. If you're going to do that, man-made altering, you need to come in for that permit. If you're going to have an RV in the special flood hazard area, as it is very common to bring an RV to live there while you're building or rebuilding your house or remodeling your house, that's fine. But make sure that you don't have an RV for more than 180 days, which could be hard because sometimes it takes more than 6 months to rebuild a house. Just make sure you check with them. If you're going to bring in and store materials, you know what, I'm going to build back this rock wall or whatever, and I'm just going to throw the big old pile of rock here or the big old pile or bags of concrete, whatever it is, you must get a permit for that, because if the water comes back, it's going to pick up some of that stuff and move it away and maybe move it to gas or liquid storage tanks, especially. If you're going to place one of those big natural gas or propane tanks or whatever you're going to do, then you have to think about those things. So substantial damage, I told you, I promised you I'd talk about it. Defined by FEMA as damage of any origin. Sustained by a structure whereby the cost of repairing that structure is going to be 50%, more than 50%. Okay? And this picture here shows a house in Galveston, right after Hurricane Ike. So the little yellow circle shows where the foundation, the slab for the house is. And I'm sure you guys have seen some of that around here. But is that substantially damaged? It is. Trust me, we have people that will argue with their officials that it was not. No, we're just going to pick it up and move it. It's going to be great. So what is it? It's 50% or more of the value of your structure. If you want to get more guidance as to what exactly that number is for your particular structure, they're the best people to talk to. They're going to help you. They're going to guide you, they're going to help you, we're going to be there to help them, so, we're all in this to make sure that everybody is getting the right information. I'm going to give you an example of substantial damage, because this situation sounds funny, but it's actually, we changed the name of Homer, or somebody did, but, so there was a house that it was owned by somebody that was worth $60,000. And let's just for this purpose, let's talk about values as central appraisal values, right? And we all know the story about market value versus central appraisal, but let's just for purposes. This house was worth $60,000. It suffered $35,000 in damages, right? So it is substantially damaged, right? Because that is more than 50%. But the Eagle Scouts came in and helped him, and he didn't have to pay $20,000 of that $35,000. So now it's only $15,000 that he spent. Okay? It doesn't matter because the value of the repair was $35,000. Whether the Scouts, Habitat for Humanity, great organization by the way, I have to put a plug in there, Lowe's Foundation, HEB Foundation, a church came in and did all the work for you or donated all the material, you still have to consider the value of that repair. If you don't, if Homer didn't consider, we didn't consider this for Homer, we would let him build back at the very bottom where he was, because he was able to do it cheaper than 50%, and he's back in danger. We allowed him to put himself and his family at risk. So we wanted to provide this example. I hope it helps. There are some steps to making substantial damage, substantial improvements. Substantial improvement just means, the way I always see it is damage is kind of reactive. Substantial damage is reactive to something that damaged your house. Substantial improvement is proactive. Ooh, I want to add a second story to my house. Ooh, wait, you're in the special flood hazard area. What's the value of that second story going to do to your house? Oh, it's going to give me 3 times the value. Okay, so it's going to give you more than 50%. Guess what? You're going to have to come in and pull a permit. Oh man, I didn't know that. Yes, because we want to protect you, your house, your family. So the first step is the value of that repair or improvement has to be determined. Okay, there are tools for that, all kinds of different software tools, and there are ways to get that, and you have to use benchmark values. Like if you're going to use the CAD values or whatever value you're going to use, you have to start there, and then you have to use the same methodology across the board. You can't say, well, for you I use a CAD value, but for you, man, I went ahead and used the market value because your house is really nice and big, and so it's probably. You can't do that. You have to stay within the same methodology. After that, so you determine how much it's going to cost to fix or how much your improvement's going to raise the value. You determine the market value, whether it's CAD or whatever. You make that substantial damage or substantial improvement determination. The community has to send you a letter and say, dear resident, based on this and that information, your house was substantially damaged. It's going to cost more than 50% to repair the house and bring it back. Therefore, you must come in and you must get a permit, and we must be able to review that to make sure that you're going to be safe. That's a reason for that. Thank you.
So now you know what the floodplain management conferences are like. That's what it's like. Some of them are pretty exciting though, talking about hydraulics and hydrology and all the, we nerd out on all the engineering stuff. What I like is when people give us real life stuff, and I suspect one of these years I'll probably get to do a presentation of this, but out of respect, I don't want to talk about it right now. That is the end of our presentation. We thank you so much for coming here tonight. We're not allowed to take any questions, but I'm going to be on the floor because I would like to visit with some of you because you're my friends, and I want to know how you're doing. Thank you.